Sure.
How do you go from success as a personal trainer, coaching, having your courses, pretty steady revenue, to starting as like essentially a training program?
I am not a person who takes big, huge leaps. I am definitely someone who needs to build the net before I leap, or build the net like while I'm leaping. And so that was definitely what I did with my transitioning out of my fitness business. I was really thoughtful about what are my strengths, and then how does that lend itself to whatever it is I want to do next.
So you've now built this into a global brand. Like, where does global brand even start? Like, like fitness, then you transition over, you test it, you see that it's working. Where does global start? Welcome back to the Omi Show, where we bring you authentic insight into the world of finance, pop culture, tech, and business news. Today's guest is Sarah Dean, the visionary behind the Shameless Mom Academy and podcast. Ooh, I'm about to run out of breath. The Shameless Mom Academy and podcast, a movement that's touched the lives of over 100,000 moms. Her mission is to empower moms and ignite positive change across the globe. After a successful 12-year career as a personal trainer, Sarah began to question the status quo, recognizing the relentless pressure on women to shrink their bodies at any cost, and knew it was time for a shift. After the birth of her son, she became the catalyst for transformation. The birth of her son became the catalyst for transformation, and she embarked on the journey to champion a new narrative, which is to encourage women to take up more space, embrace their strengths, and celebrate their voices. Welcome to the Omi Show, Sarah Dean.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
So we're going to start here. So I should just let everybody listening know that y'all are just about to listen to us have a conversation that we want to have. Okay. So this may not be the standard interview that you're used to hearing from me, because we're going to go back and forth with some questions, but welcome to our living room where we're just going to be chopping it up. But first, I do have to ask you the question.
Talk.
Yes, I love that. Okay. First, I do have to ask you the question that we ask everybody. You can be doing anything in the world. And we heard a little bit about what you were doing, personal training people. I like the idea of like shrinking your body, like you saying, like women were so focused on shrinking their body. But you could be doing anything. You could have taken that in any direction you want to. You didn't have to create the Shameless Mom Academy. You could have just created Shameless Mom podcast. You could be doing anything in the world. Why create the Shameless Moms Academy and podcast?
I knew that when I was moving out of the fitness industry and helping women shrink their bodies, that I wanted to create a space and a platform that could be a more global brand, where I could be impacting more lives than just like 30 to 40 people in a gym on any given day. And I also wanted to be a place where moms could come and learn, so that it would be a place for personal development, but also a place for moms to connect with one another. And so the Shameless Mom Academy was named so in order to let moms know that this is a place where you're going to learn and grow, but you're also in it with other people, and you're not just alone.
And I think through personal training, like if you're holding courses, you also kind of had that built into you, like you were. It was a natural thing of saying you're not alone, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about career switching a little bit.
Sure.
How do you go from success as a personal trainer, coaching, having your courses, pretty steady revenue, doing your thing, to saying, I'm going to completely drop this in a way, because I mean, like it's a transition, to starting as like essentially a training program. It's like that is not related to physical training at all. Did a lot of those customers come over with you in the beginning? Did you find yourself having to create a whole new set of customers? Like, what was that transition between I'm going to stop this and I'm going to start this?
So I think that most people, when you see it from, social media world, you see people make career changes or shifts, and it looks like they've taken a big leap. Like just overnight, they've decided to stop one thing and start another. And that's not how it usually happens. And also, I am not a person who takes big, huge leaps. I am definitely someone who needs to build the net before I leap, or build the net like while I'm leaping. And so that was definitely what I did with my transitioning out of my fitness business. And I knew that I wanted to have this place where I could have a bigger stage. And also impact more lives ultimately. Like that was the goal from having the bigger stage. And so I decided to start the podcast just to try something new and different and see what would happen. It wasn't necessarily like, let's go out and build a global brand around it. It was just, let me see how this feels and if this is the next right thing for me. And so it definitely was initially very experimental. And then it went from experimental and giving myself like 6 months to just kind of feel it out. And after that 6 months, feeling like, oh, this is really the thing. And so at that point, then I looked into what would it look like to sell this fitness business, and what would it look like to transition all the way into the podcast and then build a business around the podcast. And a huge part of that was, and I think this part is really key for people because this is what you don't see or hear about. A key part of that was me looking at my skill sets from before. And you had mentioned, like, if you have this place where you're in this gym and you're impacting lives in that way, how does that set you up for the next thing? And so I knew from being in this gym environment and motivating people years and years and years on end that I could then get behind a microphone and motivate people on a different level because I had already been doing that and had really good success with that. So while it appeared maybe to be a big leap to the outside world or a quick transition, it was really me strategically trying things on for size to see how they would feel. And then being really thoughtful and intentional around what gifts, talents, skills and strengths am I taking with me to build the new thing. So I wasn't just like picking anything out of thin air. I was really thoughtful about what are my strengths and then how does that lend itself to whatever it is I want to do next.
So did you have a background in business already? So you've now built this into a global brand. Like, where does global brand even start? Like, like fitness, then you transition over, you test it, you see that it's working. Where does global start?
So this is another like behind the scenes things. And Omi, you probably can relate to this. Being a global brand means that people are engaging with your brand across the world, but it doesn't mean that like I'm a jet setter hopping around to every continent every week. And I think sometimes there's this miscommunication. Like as soon as I'm an international speaker and trainer because I've spoken and trained in 2 other countries, one of which is Canada, which is 3 hours from my house. And the other, which is I've gone to Europe to speak and train as well, to London. And so to say I'm an international speaker, like you do the thing a couple times and then you can add the title. It doesn't mean that like every week you're doing this or, that you're jet setting all over the world. So as a global brand, the podcast is downloaded in over 140 countries. And if you have a podcast for long enough, your podcast will be listened to in many, many, many countries. On top of that, we've had members of our community who I've had the opportunity to coach in our community, in our membership programs, who have come from Europe and from Australia and from Canada and from Brazil. And so you start to get like people here and there. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, like, you kind of don't even, you're like, oh, wait, this is global.
I love
that. So it wasn't me setting up being
No, thank you for saying that
thoughtful.
because I think people overthink it. Yeah, they do. And so it's good to just remind people that, hey, you too may be international right now and you don't even know it. You may be global.
Yes.
Right now. Own that. Say it proudly. Yeah. That's one of the things about getting press. Like you can give me the best shoe award and I will rock that thing like it's the best thing since sliced bread. I'll be like, I got the best shoe award. Look at this. Look at me. Ha, ha, ha. Like, it's a thing. Yeah. You should brag on yourself and not be shameless. Yeah. You should be shameless. Yeah. All right. Speaking of that, right. Okay. So this is one of the things that I think about a lot when I think about starting my own training courses. So I'm curious. I worry about doing the whole like, oh, here's my $12.97 course. Slash that. I'm gonna give it to you for $4.97. Here's my $4.97. Like, and you're getting $497 worth of value for $199. Like, I feel a little bit like, is that the way to go about it? I feel like everybody went to a particular training course and they taught them to do it exactly like that. And I'm like, where is the door to the training course where people are getting taught this? I'm curious for you. How did you determine pricing? Did you go to this hidden training course that I'm trying to find? Where somebody taught you to sell in a certain way? Like, what has been your journey to really solidify yourself in this training space?
Yeah. I did in my fitness business. I had a business coach and that really opened my eyes to how I could make my business more profitable, how I could expand my reach. And I was actually in a business coaching program and there was 2 guys who were like the head coaches of the program. And they taught me a million things about running a fitness business that changed the trajectory of my career in so many great ways. And also, it was two dudes teaching a young woman how to run a fitness business. And there was a lot of stuff that I was like, I'm not doing that. They're like, you should have like a bikini competition and like make it a weight
No.
loss challenge. And I was like, hell no. I'm like, that is not my vibe. That's not my brand. That's not what I want to promote. So initially I had a lot of training from people in the bro marketing space. For people not familiar with that, there's a lot of dudes on the internet who sell and promote things in a very certain way. And also there's a handful of women who are in that bro marketing culture who've been extremely successful. And what I think that does is then other women follow them because they're like, oh, they're the head women in this industry. They're the head women making money on the internet. And a lot of it is that like, here's all the value you're going to get. It's going to be $18,000 worth of value, but you're going to only get it for $97 if you order in the next 10 minutes. And it's so gross. And so there's been this huge indoctrination and like cult-like following around building businesses in that way. What I have done over the years is I've definitely fallen into some of that. And I've definitely done things where I followed advice that at the time seemed like great advice. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. Because I've been doing this, I've been in this internet space and building businesses for so long, I am way better at discerning now what feels right to me and what's aligned with my brand and my brand values. And there are so many things in that field that I will not do and that I am unwilling to do anymore. Even if I did them in the past, I've learned more. Once you know better, you can do better. So I've really removed myself from that culture and learned to do things in a way that's more aligned with my brand values. I'm not going to like be pitching women and hardcore pitching and making women feel like they have to make a super fast decision to get a really great deal to get amazing results right now, because I don't think that's a safe way to treat people. I would much rather treat people in a way where they can make a decision that feels good to them. They can enter into a coaching relationship or a training relationship that feels like a right fit, that's mutually beneficial. And it's not me trying to create panic and hysteria to convince them that they need something because I'm the only person that has the solution. And it's $97 right now, only for the next 10 minutes.
What I'm hearing you say is be shameless about switching careers. And I'm also hearing you say be shameless about living your core values in business. I think these two are so important because people are sitting right now listening to this saying, I've run this business for 20 years and I'm tired of it. There's people right now listening to this saying, I've been at this job for 3 years and I'm tired of it. And saying like, but how dare me switch careers? How dare me attempt something else? I deal with it myself, right? I built this major global brand under Black Girl Ventures. And now I'm thinking to myself, well, what brand do I want to build outside of Black Girl Ventures? What does that look like? Is that what my worth is? Like, is my worth tied to only BGV? Like, I can imagine that like under personal training is like, is my worth only tied to personal training? Is that where I'm the biggest and that's the only place I would be able to be? And the answer to those questions are no. It's not the only place you'll be able to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you are always creating stepping stones for yourself. So like Black Girl Ventures, like that's a stepping stone, an incredible stepping stone, like a massive life achievement. And then like, what does that open the door to in terms of what you can do next? And I think being aware of that and being thoughtful and intentional around that is like, that's how you get to figure out the next thing. And like give yourself permission to keep growing and keep expanding your horizons in terms of what you see as possible for yourself.
Especially in the sense of giving yourself permission. At the Shameless Moms Academy, how are you teaching women through curriculum to give themselves permission to be who they are?
Yeah. So when I first started the show, I was really intentional that I wanted every episode to have a takeaway, like something that a mom could implement right away, whether it was professional or personal or just something that made help them find hope on a hard day. And what ended up happening over time is I had all these episodes with that kind of content, and I was able to then start a membership community and really thoughtfully put together some of the content that we used in episodes and do a deeper dive into like a continuing curriculum. And so for 5 years, we ran a membership community that had an ongoing training curriculum, and which was incredible. And then what I've done with that training curriculum that I did inside our membership community is I've taken components of that and turned that into training curriculums that I now take outside of the Shameless Mom Academy and I take into companies and organizations. Some of them are women specific, some of them are mom specific, and some of them are anyone who can within a company who wants to show up. And it's been really, really incredible to see how you can build something in one place and then you can take it and leverage it in other places by tweaking it to be right for that environment rather than constantly trying to reinvent the wheel. So I've been, rather than always building something new, which is often the temptation, I've really forced myself to look back and look at what do you already have that you can repurpose. And that's like, you already put the time in to make something really, really great. How can you then meld it in a way or build it in a new way it can have impact somewhere else and you keep getting paid on the same thing.
Because you know what, you're developing your own sort of formula. So during this process of building, what are some of the challenges that you ran into?
So challenges, I mean, creating content on a weekly basis in the way that I've done it has been a lot. So I have 2 episodes a week that come out on, sometimes 3 that come out on the podcast, and then creating membership community content for our membership community. So that's like 4 significant pieces of content every week. So it's just a lot, and it's not hard for me. A lot of it brings me joy, but it is like working down like a long checklist every week. And that part gets hard. Like staying really motivated to like, okay, here's the 87 steps that we're going to do again. That piece, I think, especially as a creative and as a visionary, like staying with the formula, that piece has definitely felt draining at times. The other thing that has felt challenging is knowing that I have something really good, and this probably will resonate with a lot of people listening, knowing that I have something really good and seeing that it has changed all these lives and the people that I've had with listening to the show or inside my membership community or people that I've done coaching with, executive coaching and life coaching. And then trying to go to another environment and say, hey, I have this thing that's really, really great. It's impacted all these lives, and have that. And this happens a lot with corporate stuff and organizational stuff, having them say like, oh, that sounds amazing. That's exactly what we need. But how about we get back to you in like 6 to 9 months when we might have some budget? And then you're just sitting there waiting and you feel like you're bringing them this like golden nugget. Like, I have the best thing that could transform the lives of the people in this organization. And they're like, yeah, that sounds great.
Right.
Let's talk in 9 months. That's really hard, especially when you're used to having like clients on the internet who are like, yes, I want more right now. So it's a shift in mindset in terms of building business in a different way. And it's like a major check your ego, because it feels like more, it doesn't even, some of it feels like more rejection. There's definitely a lot of flat out no's, but it's also a lot of hurry up and wait. That definitely makes you question your worth. You're like, wait, why aren't they getting back to me? Why is this taking so long? I mean, I have like this whole spreadsheet of companies that I've been talking to for a couple of years now, just waiting. And they're still like, yeah, as soon as we get budget.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So in terms of switching, one of the things I asked you before we turned the mic on was, I am thinking about selling all my things and traveling the world and homeschooling my kid. What do you think about that? Okay. But hold that thought. Because we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, okay, Sarah and I are just going to have an open conversation between moms, really, and business owners about me and this thought that I'm having, where I just want to shake up my life and be free for a minute and travel the world. I can work from anywhere. And so I'm so interested in us chopping it up and having this conversation. So everybody keep it locked right here. You listen to The Omi Show. I am Omi Bell. We'll be right back to have more of this conversation. Before we left, I was telling y'all that I've been having these thoughts about selling all of my things and just traveling across the country, the world, and homeschooling my kid. And I think that one of the reasons why I want to talk to you about this is because in the realm of being shameless, when you build a thing and you have so many people relying on you, and then you have some kids and they're also relying on you, it shifts what it means to be free.
Totally.
Like, your freedom always has to have these caveats and understandings and sacrifices, and at least so you think.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you think? Okay, that's what I'm thinking about right now. Haven't landed completely, but what do you think?
Oh my gosh. So when you say sell all my things and homeschool my kid, like that just gives me a lot of anxiety. Like, I don't know if anyone's watched the show. It's like an HGTV show. I don't know if it's still on, about people living in tiny homes. And like, I loved watching it, but it also gave me so much anxiety because I was like, oh, that's just a really tiny space. Like, I mean, what if they all just want to kill each other? So I feel a little bit of that when you say, but I also think that when you have built something, there can be this like strong desire to either move to the next thing or even want to escape the thing that you've built. And I've actually had this in the last couple of years as well. I think it has to do with the pandemic. It has to do with being a business owner for so long. But I've had this like wanting mental freedom. And I think it's because when you are a business owner, like you don't turn it off. It's always on your mind, even if you like, quote unquote, clock out for the day and you're like, I've checked all my boxes. I'm done with my list of things to do. But then you're like, you're making dinner and you're still thinking about it. You're driving your kid to practice and you're still thinking about it. And so for me, I resonate with that idea of like wanting to like flip things upside down and or escape the thing that you've built. I think that it's important that you look at who you are and what your life cycle has looked like. So I've been able to recognize as an entrepreneur, and having done this for, now I'm 47 years old, and I can look back and see these patterns that like every 6 to 7 years, I'm real like, okay, what's next? And that's really different. Like both of my parents worked at the same job for like 30 years. My mom was a teacher for 42 years. They did the same thing. When I look back and I see this pattern in my life, I can recognize, okay, you're at that 6, 7 year, you're wanting to see what's next. I've done this thing really well. I've done it for a while, and now I need a new challenge. And if you are creative, if you're super entrepreneurial, if you are a visionary, if you have ADHD, I relate to all of those things, then wanting to change things up, I think is, makes a ton of sense. And I also think that as an entrepreneur, sometimes, while it looks, we have all this freedom for sure, but I think that freedom, what it looks like on social media is a lot different than what it feels like behind the scenes. And it's like, it's like freedom in quotes. Like, yes, I can pick my kid up from school every day, but also like I'm laying at bed at night from 12 to 2, thinking about what I'm going to talk about on the podcast. So like, that doesn't feel like freedom sometimes.
Yeah, I think, so I am a 7-year itch kind of person, and this is my 7th year. So so you're right about that. When I get to 7 years, I am kind of like, I also think that I've had some times in my career where things have just happened really quickly and really easily for me. And then I also started looking at like, now Black Girl Ventures isn't necessarily one of those things, but like I've done a lot of press and media, and I've done a lot of like, I used to do like, I had like a stint in journalism, but like I have a tendency to reach certain heights fairly quickly, and I'm so thankful for that. And then I end up being like, did I deserve to get here? Like, should I, should I even be right here right now?
Right.
So I've also gone through my stint of that. I'm super hardcore about like healing and mental health and like figuring that out about myself, and like leaving no stone unturned about anything that I may be held up on from the past. So I've done a lot of hardcore work in that sense. And even in that sense, next year will be a 6 year for me. I think it is a 6. I think it's it's a 5 year for me. If you're new to numerology, it's a 5 year for me, which means things shake up, new opportunities come out of nowhere. Yeah. So it's going to be a 5 year for me next year. And so I'm also thinking about that. But I do feel this like sense of I am not creating the same way I had been creating in the beginning. And I have a yearning to get back to that, or get to that in a new way.
Yeah.
I have not been able to focus a lot on just like romance, or like even give space in my life to a partner. And so I think like I'm interested in that. There's ways I think with my children that I have that I'm like present, but I want to be even more. I want to be able to play Barbies freely. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to play Barbies,
like really be present in it. Yeah.
I don't want to be making Barbie now a professional Barbie that got to go to work. I want to be like, oh, she's hanging, she's going to the pool, like she's hanging out with her friends, and she's walking her dog, like in her mansion, I want to be able to freely play Barbies. I was such, with my older children, I have a 24-year-old and a 21-year-old. I drilled them so hard on school. And I didn't drill my 8-year-old the same way. And they're just all different kids. They're all different children.
Yeah.
They're not alike in any way. So
Yeah.
I think it's just been interesting to sort of like raise the older two, get out of the grind that I was in, raising them, single parent. I had my first child at 17, second child at 21. And so now I'm like, I have an 8-year-old. My life is completely different from before. What's available to me? I think that's what I'm asking myself, like, what is actually versus like what I gotta do,
Yeah.
which is what you end up in a mom way.
Yeah.
Even if you're having a career, you're still in the what I gotta do as a mom.
Totally.
Yeah. So I'm thinking through some of these things.
I love all that. I've recently been asking myself, so I'm 47, and I've been asking myself, what do you want to do for the next 20, like the last 20 years of your professional life? And that feels like a really big question. But when I think about it that way, it does give me some perspective in terms of like knowing that what I'm doing right now, I want to take pieces of this with me, but like, I'm not going to have I'm not going to be 67 with the Shameless Mom Academy. Like, sorry to all my audience. But, so I've been thinking about this a lot too. Like and maybe it's like getting to a certain age or a certain age in parenting or a certain age in life or a certain stage in life where it is like, okay, if I'm going to do, I've like one more chunk of 20 years, like what's that going to be? And I've been totally exploring that as well. And for me, it's been around where will there be more mental ease and not necessarily building a brand around me.
Oh my God. Well, here's the thing. What's so funny about me is I'm almost in the opposite where I focus so much on building things that are not me. Like, and even though like I'm the energy inside of Black Girl Ventures, I am so good at being like, let's talk about Black Girl Ventures though. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not the person that, even though it is so funny because face wise is built around me, energetically is built around me, vision wise is built around me, but naming wise, no. So I think part of me even saying what I said earlier in the show about not wanting to do the sell for a course is me getting over not wanting to sell myself directly to anyone and have to have myself directly be the thing that you evaluate as good or bad. So I'm curious about your journey there. Like, well, I guess you are already a personal trainer, so you were kind of in the rhythm of you come to my training class, you might like it, you might not.
Right.
So like, and then people, how do you deal with people rejecting who you are as tied to, being that personal trainer or the Shameless Mom Academy, where people are like, oh, this, I can't work with this trainer. She goes too fast. Oh, she goes too hard. I don't like how she dances. That like, what kind of things have you dealt with around being shameless?
Yeah. I have a really close friend who's a therapist and also an entrepreneur, and has done a lot of work on top of therapy. She does a lot of coaching and live events and online courses and like all the things. And we have a constant conversation about disconnecting your worth from how many things you sell on the internet on any given day. And it is so incredibly difficult. And one of the things we've talked about, and for people who have online courses and things that they sell, that they launch for on the internet, one of the things we've talked a lot about is post-traumatic stress of online launching. And that it's a real thing. When you put yourself out there, you've built a brand around yourself or around like your talent, and you're the face of the business. And then you go out there and you hustle to sell this thing. And then either no one buys it or very few people buy it, or like the outcome doesn't match your expectations or your goals. It's really, really challenging to disconnect that from your self-worth, because the automatic assumption is like, I didn't try hard enough, or the thing I'm selling isn't good enough, or people don't like me. And to have to objectively look at what are some of the other reasons this maybe didn't work. Maybe it was, so like for me, I've tried to sell things in the middle of summer. Let me tell you, moms are not in their inboxes in the end of July wanting to buy courses. They're like out at the pool and on the beach and managing 18 kids at home that they wish were in school. They're not like, can I sign up for a course and be on Zoom 3 nights a week? Like, that's not what they want. So I've had to look objectively at things that didn't work out to be like, okay, where was the miss here? And even if it was that people don't like me or people don't want what I have right now, that doesn't mean that I am not valuable or worthy or a good person. or that I don't have something good here. It maybe just isn't the right thing right now. And so it's like a lot of self-coaching, and it takes a lot of stepping away from your ego. Also a lot of therapy and sometimes medication to really be able to, I think, work through disconnecting yourself from your self-worth from your business and from the success of your business. And that can be really, really challenging and also incredibly draining. And that's where I got to a point after having done a million online launches and just saying like, I'm not ever launching again. I'm done. It's way too draining. There's a lot of things I don't like about it anymore. And I don't like it industry wide. There's things about it I don't like anymore. And so I've decided to shift how I do things so that I am not in a cycle of having my worth tied to certain metrics in my business.
That's a whole word. Shamelessly disconnect your worth from your business.
Yeah.
I love that just because you're so right. And you know what? That's what I'm avoiding. So like I've had people be like, I don't know about that, but I will take your course. And I'm like, ooh, thank you. But I don't want to go through I did all this work and only 2 people signed up. I don't want to go through and so what I've done, and this is me being very open about what I've done, is I've done things where I sort of do like I'm gonna test it out. If nobody buys it, I can say I did it last minute. You know, like I can say I did it last minute and that's when nobody didn't buy it, and so what, right?
Yeah.
And I've done things like that. My first course that I think I charged like $199 for or something like that. It was an in-person course and it was all day, 2 days. 2 women signed up. They loved it.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I was like, oh, well, only 2 people signed up because I did it last minute. So, you know, like, and that was me. So for everybody out there.
That doesn't mean it was a failure. Like, that means that if 2 women signed up and loved it, that means you have something there. And I think that sometimes then it's like, okay, how can I tweak this and do it, promote it a little differently or launch it differently or invite people in a different way. And then you might have a different outcome. And yeah, go ahead. I totally cut you off.
You just gave me an idea.
Oh, I have another suggestion, but go ahead.
No, go. What's it?
So my other idea when you said like launching things and trying things out and testing things, which I'm all for, and I've done a lot of that. I also think you can ask people what they want. And so wherever your people are in the largest critical mass, whether that's on Instagram or whether that's on TikTok or whether that's in your email list, going to them, and whether it's via an open-ended question or a survey, like we do surveys, we try to do them once a year that we send out to our list, and we ask people, hey, what do you want? By the way, if you're going to do a survey, always do a gift card raffle. So we say like, if you fill out this survey, we're going to put you in a raffle for a $100 Amazon gift card. I will tell you that the feedback I get makes me 10 times more than $100. So it's worth it to buy one $100 gift card. So then people will fill out the survey, and I'll say like, what do you love? What do you want more of? What's most valuable to you right now in terms of these specific offerings or these things that we're doing? And then I'm trying to think of other questions. And then I'll say like, so if I have an idea at the time, like I'll say, hey, we're thinking about trying out some in-person retreats this year. Would you be interested? So now I know if people are actually interested. Also, I have the email addresses of the people that said yes. So when I decide I want to do a retreat, I can go right to them and say, hey, I want to give you priority registration here because you expressed interest in this. So you're getting a lot of information in there. The other thing with the survey is at the very end, you can say, what else do you want us to know? Or how else can we help you? Or what else do you want? So I always say, what else do you want Sarah to know? And that's where people just give you all the love. They're like, I love you so much. You're amazing. Thank you for everything that you do. And like, sometimes they'll have a question or suggestion there, but usually it's just like a love fest. And I'm telling you, like, that will fuel your soul for a very long time.
I love that. The reason why I love that is because I've thought about doing the survey part, but what I love about the part that you added to at least my thoughts was then offering them a priority registration. That brings it full circle. So it's like, that's a good tactic. So for those out there listening, the idea of like surveying, very short, brief survey. And I've done some of that, like, just throw out to my audience on like social media, Facebook. Hey, would you like, if one of the questions that people have given me before is like, if I were doing a TED Talk, what do you think it would be about? Right. and then they kind of tell you like, oh, they express like what they want to hear or what they think you would talk about. And a lot of times for me, it's around pitching, it's around getting brand deals, it's around building your network, activating your network, especially after the book has come out. Do you feel like, so after doing that, do you ever feel like there's a tie to one thing that comes out that you want to do, or do you just go with what you feel like was most popular to your audience?
I definitely connect it to what feels good to me. I don't want to deliver on something that I don't like. um, or that I don't have the energy for. And so like I recently shut down our membership community. I'd been doing it for 5 years. I loved that community. I mean, I would say this about my gym too. Like I loved my gym. I loved what I built there. And also I got to a point where I'm like, I've done this for a long time and I feel like it's run its course. And so I, intentionally in a like thoughtful and, intentional way, shut down that component of my business. So we don't have that membership community anymore. When I thought about what do I want to do with the second half of 2023, I was like, I don't want to run Zoom calls for a membership community anymore. I also don't think that's what my audience wants. And so what felt really good to me when I thought about how do I want to serve people in Q3, Q4, I immediately thought in-person retreats. And because I haven't done that in a while, except for like in kind of exclusive programs I was running. So I thought, what if I do these 2 retreats for 2 different target audiences? And I put out feelers and I just say, so I emailed my whole list to say, hey, I'm thinking about doing a retreat for business owners and I'm thinking about doing a retreat for corporate leaders. And if you're interested in either, just reply to this email. And so I started to build a list of just people who were interested. And then I started, when I had everything ready to offer the retreats, I then went into the spreadsheet that I had created, and I individually emailed people to say, hey, dear Jane, you expressed interest in this and I want to personally invite you. I'm inviting you before I open this up to the public. So I decided instead of launching, I want to do personal invitations to events that feel really good to me. And I want to curate who's there, not because I wouldn't let other people in, but I want to say like, I've worked with you in the past. I know you're a really great fit for this. Why don't you come? And people feel seen and heard that way. They feel like you know what the value is and what they're going to get out of it. And they're more likely to say yes. So that's kind of how I'm doing things now. Like this is the event that I want to run or the service I want to offer. And I also know that these are the people that would most benefit from it. And so I'm personally inviting folks before opening it up. And then if other people want to join, great. That works too,
I love that. Well, we could talk all night, honestly. And like, I'm sitting here, I even forgot we was recording the show. I'm like, we just in here brainstorming. I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? That's cool. Ooh, let me think about it.
We're just a whole strategic planning session.
We really did. So for those listening, you are ready. Is there anything else you want people to know? Where to follow you, where to link with Shameless Moms Podcast?
Sure. Yeah. So thank you for asking. And thank you for having me. This has been so fun. So you can find me, the podcast is the Shameless Mom Academy. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. And then if you want to work with me or find out more about what I have to offer or attend my retreats, etc., you can go to shamelessmom.com or sarahdean.com, SARA, Sarah, no H, sarahdean.com, and just reach out through our forms there. And I don't have my offers currently up on my sites. It's just reach out and let me know that you want to know what I'm up to. And I can send you information.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me.